one that he for me will plead. I need no other evidence, I need no other plea. It is enough that Jesus died and rose again for me. Enough for me that Jesus saves, this ends my fear and doubt. Full soul, I come to him, he will not cast me out. I need no other evidence, I need no other plea. It is enough that Jesus died and rose again for me. My soul is resting on the word, the living word of God. Salvation in my Savior's name, salvation through his blood. I need no other evidence, I need no other plea. It is enough that Jesus died and rose again for me. The great physician heals the sick, the lost he came to save. For me his precious blood he shed, for me his life he gave. I need no other evidence, I need no other plea. It is enough that Jesus died. Do we know 329? Take the world, but give me Jesus. Take the world, but give me Jesus. All its joys about a name. Take the world, go. Take the world, but give me Jesus. All its joys are but a name. But his love abideth ever through eternal years the same. Oh, the height and depth of mercy, oh, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness of redemption, pledge of endless life above. Take the world, but give me Jesus, sweetest comfort of my soul. With my Savior watching o'er me, I can sing the mercy, oh, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness of. Take the world, but Jesus, let me view his constant smile. Then throughout my pilgrim journey, light will cheer me all the white and depths of mercy, oh, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness of redemption, endless life above. Take the world, but give me Jesus. In his cross my trust shall be, till with brighter vision, face to face, my Lord, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness promise of redemption, pledge of endless life above. Amen. 517, as you join us up front. Miss Leo, thank you for coming. My faith, sorry for hijacking you, come and help us. My faith looks up to thee. My faith looks up to thee. My faith, go. My faith looks up to thee, thou Lamb of Calvary, Savior divine. Now hear me while I pray, take all my guilt away. Oh, let me from this day be wholly thine. May thy rich grace impart strength to my fainting heart, my zeal inspire. As thou hast died for me, oh, may my love to thee be warm and changeless, be a living fire. Where life's dark maze I tread, and griefs around me spread, be darkness turn to wipe sorrow's tears away, nor let me ever stray from thee aside. Thank you for participating in the song service. We'll usher in the next speaker to continue. If it were not for the sneers of this world, I would just come here and start talking. Praise God once again. How was lunch? Wonderful. I want to do a very brief presentation on a topic that touches on us, and I'm still within the special needs, but I want to give it a mental health approach, and I want to give a brief presentation on depression, and then just it's not a sermon now, so we can share, we can discuss, and I can ask questions. You can ask questions, and I respond. This church, the community background is mainly Luo, I guess. I'm also a Luo, but I know there could be others who are not Luos, even our online viewers. But let me ask this simple question. What is depression in Luo? Depression in Luo. You guys always say, I'm depressed, I feel depressed. Or you've heard people telling you that, I'm depressed. What do they mean? What is depression in? Why can't they say, why undepressed? Let's try. I could get somebody to assist me get those words. Our technical team. Somebody has said, "An gi chuny monyosore." Sindio? Translate that in Kiswahili or English for our online viewers. I've used one word, depression. But the statement you've given me is actually could be a description of depression. I'm looking for the word depression in Luo. Or any other community that is here, please. If you can say that depression in your mama's language.
I'm the one who said Chunymonyo, sorry.
Uh,
And in Swahili, I can easily translate it to moyo uliobondeka.
Moyo uliobondeka. Is that depression or a symptom of depression?
Now, the term in
Mwalimu, you want to try? My colleague, Daktari. Please don't give me the symptom. Give me the term.
The term now have to change chuny motor. I don't know whether that now makes sense.
Chuny motor. Chuny is the heart. Chuny is the heart or the liver. The heart that is broken. A broken heart. My heart is broken. A sad heart. We are getting closer. Any other? Somebody else who want to try? Depression. Depression in mama's language. Yes, madam wants to try.
There is no term that can, like in Luo, you'd say this word stands for depression. It's not there. I'm trying to wrap my head. I'm not seeing it.
She's saying there is no term. Does that mean that Luos don't get depressed? Do Luos get depressed? Huh?
refers to being sorrowful and without hope. And that is the character. Basically, those who are depressed, they are sorrowful and they do not have hope. And that is why mostly they tend to have suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
So, kuyo, it's a big word. Not
Kuyo,
only being sad.
Kuyo, no, it's sadness,
it's
yes.
Being sorrowful and
Sorrowful.
to add without hope.
And hopelessness. Any other? So we move it from there for the sake of time, but at least we get a feeling of what it is. It takes us to the negative side of life. Because when you hear being heartbroken, when you hear being sad, when you hear being, that is the negative aspect of life. And of course, definitely there are opposites of that. Opposites of sadness, being happy. Now, all those terms that you've given me, actually, I don't have also a word for depression. But what I know, it's a common experience with many of us. Occasionally, we've been depressed. When we talk of depression, even as we have been depressed in the past, you've gone through that sadness for one reason or another. Maybe you lost somebody, you lost a loved one, and so on. And therefore, even in the Bible, there were people who were depressed. Most of the time, like a counselor, when I receive clients and they experience depression, most of them would not actually tell me that they are depressed, but they give you description of the symptoms, just like what you are giving me, the symptoms. And those symptoms are a pointer to depression. So depression is a common experience. The other thing about depression is that it happens. Now, depression only becomes a problem if it's what we call clinical, that is experiencing extreme symptoms of depression, then it becomes clinical and it may need attention. But what does the Bible tell us about depression? That the Bible sometimes does not use the word depression exactly as we want it, but it has terms that refer to depression. For example, broken-hearted. Somebody said, "My heart is broken," being broken-hearted. Maybe an incident has happened or something has taken place or your situation has changed and you feel broken-hearted. I know Wazungus most of the time they say I'm experiencing the blues or I'm feeling down. So identification of a mood disorder, the mood disorder. So is one of them. There are many, but I particularly want to focus on the aspect of major depressive disorder. So being broken-hearted, sometimes the Bible refers to it as downcast. My heart is downcast. Now, depression, even from geography, we know that depression is like a hole. It's like a valley deep down there. And when you are down there, it simply means that your mood is on the downside. Then now in the Bible we find great men and women of God experience depression. Among them David. David in the book of Psalms cries so much about depression. Cries so much about depression, and he talks of my heart being downcast. Other examples that we know of, yet David is one man who is described as a man after God's own heart. Now, if a man after God's own heart could be depressed, what about us? Great men and women of faith and influence battled the dark times in their lives, hopelessness, and they experienced depression. We are reminded of, I've talked about David. We are also reminded of Elijah, and I talked about Elijah in the morning. After successful victory, the man of God just goes into depression down there at the valley when he was supposed to have been celebrating. Jonah was another one who was so depressed. He would even say in Jonah 4:3, he said, "Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live." The moment normally we reach that level of take away my life, it's better for me to die than to live. But today's experience, people don't ask God to take away their life. They take it. So that was common with Jonah. And even after God assured him of victory, he still felt like, no, I can't live anymore. Job is another great man of God who experienced depression. Job had this to say, "Why did I not perish at birth and die as I came from the womb?" To that extent, so depressed to that extent that he said, "I wish I died or came out dead. I have no peace, no quietness. I have no rest, but only turmoil. I love my life." He says, "Terrors overwhelm me. My life ebbs away, days of suffering," and so on. Moses got so angry that he got depressed when he went to the mountain to get the 10 Commandments, only to come and find people had disobeyed God. Jeremiah got depressed. He often felt lonely and feelings of defeat and insecurity. Those are some of the things that depression come with. That aspect of surrender. I surrender. I don't see any future. I have no hope. What about Jesus himself, the Messiah, the Savior? On the cross, he said, Isaiah 53 describes him as a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. Depression also goes hand in hand with grief. But then Jesus himself on the Calvary, he even said, "Lord, if you will, then take this cup away from me." What does that cup symbolize? Suffering. Not my will, but your will. So therefore, we find that depression, even respected men and women of great faith and influence experience that dark side of life, that dark side of life. So then, what about us today? So then I want to come to what makes me to stand here. As a Christian, yes, it's not something that we can deny, and yet so stigmatized that when we have family members or we ourselves suffer depression, we think we are really off the mark. And that is where problems come in. And therefore, we are not able to seek help as required. Now, depression is one of the mental health problems that are very common. Actually, depression, we refer to depression in mental health as common cold. It's the common cold of mental health. It's just as common as anything else, in the sense that people would suffer depression and sometimes severe depression. Now, the challenge that we have with our setting is that mental health has not been given the attention that it requires. Why is this happening? Remember, the government sets standards, and the standards that have been set by the government have mainly focused on psychiatrists, psychiatric help, which we only find in hospitals. Now, again, even the psychiatrists are always crying. They're always saying that even the government budget for mental health is like, is it 0.1%? That's what they've been saying. That mental health has not been given the attention that it requires. And if the government can't set the standards, what about us in church? Has our church given mental health the serious attention that is needed? Or we come to church, people smile, we eat, we say happy Sabbath. That happy Sabbath is not always a happy one for everybody. That is something that we need to know. But again, in the church, you are expected to be happy. So when you are sad and withdrawn and experience these symptoms of depression, then it's very easy for people to confuse you as very unsocial. And yet you could be battling a mental health problem. I'm just focusing on depression. Now, in our setting, we have a number of things that cause depression. Remember, we have a lot of human rights violations, and these people whose rights have been violated, of course, are likely to suffer depression. We have violence. There's a lot of violence at home today. In our homes are actually battlegrounds. To the extent that you've seen a lot of reporting even for children. Our children have been violated physically, they've been violated sexually, they've been abused. And then we also have the adults who do not report. A lot of cases of intimate partner violence. So that is also very common. And even in the Christian setting, that as a Christian and more so an Adventist home is a good home. So you don't go talking about the violence at home. So you suffer with your problems in silence. Internet for the young people, there's a lot of cyberbullying and cyber crimes, and we've actually seen the results of cyber crimes. A child, like during Corona, it was very common, especially last year's lockdown, that these young people love the technology. They love their phones. They love getting into online conversations. And in the process, the online conversation, you find a girl leaves home, never to be traced, having been led away by those criminals and kidnappers, and then eventually they end up being abused. So the question for us as parents is that, do we ever get to know what they are checking online? But the question to the young people, would you allow your parent to get to know the conversations that you are having online? Their phones are so private, and even our phones, by the way, they are very private. You can only access when you have the PIN numbers and so on. So cybercrime, cyberbullying, I know a lot of young people are suffering from cyberbullying. Violent games, do we get to know what the children watch? And even those cartoons, I've seen violent cartoons. For parents who are young parents, not every cartoon is suitable for your child. A lot of substance abuse. alcohol, marijuana, and so on. Now, the interesting part with the technology, what I've seen with the young people, they actually manufacture their own drugs. They can use yogurt, Valium, Panadol, uh, the morning pills, the morning after pills, and create a very good drug. So they are able to create them. They just go through the internet and follow the conversation. This is what is happening. So when you are waiting that your child, oh, my child doesn't use bangi. Okay, they use them. But do you know today they can create those drugs? They just follow the internet and the instruction. Sometimes you heard stories of children watching certain movies, and the movie ends when they commit suicide. Did you hear of that movie? Yeah, they watch it on internet, and it ends when suicide is committed. So again, for teens, as they grow, remember the body changes and all that. So this also comes in with a lot of depression. Sometimes their body changes do not work positively for them. Like I know girls would not be comfortable with acne on their faces, so they become very uncomfortable. And remember, they're also being bullied in school. There's also cyberbullying, so they just sink into depression. And then depression is not a preserve of the teens, the children. Depression also affects the 0-year babies, like 6 months, 2 months. So as a young parent, you need to check on the irritability of this child. How do we get to know that this child is depressed? A young one who is breastfeeding, when they are depressed, they are very irritable, they cry, they throw tantrums. Alafu matiti anauma kuuma. That is just a symptom that this child could be struggling with the depression, if not other problems. Depression and other mental illnesses can occur at any stage. None of us is safe. And that's why I always say that let us give a lot of regard to people who have mental health challenges. You never know when you sink into this. Anything could trigger depression. So it's something that is common, can start in the early years or even in teenage. Even something like failing an exam can actually trigger serious depression among our young children. Of course, as parents, when we have our children growing up, we expect our children to grow up normally, but sometimes they end up sinking in depression. But now the problem with our young people, whenever they experience depressive symptoms that are very uncomfortable, they turn to drugs as relievers, but these ones often don't work. In Kenyan situation, especially when we refer to the media, a lot of examples of depression, murders, and many others. So a lot of stabbings, a lot of homicide, a lot of suicide, and so on. So these are things that are common. I've seen situations, and the figures don't lie, statistics don't lie. I've seen situations when people are depressed, they commit crime. Think of this man who stabbed his wife to death in a fight over a serving of small ugali. So a man comes home and then you give him food, he thinks this is small. So then he stabs you to death. But that is just a trigger. That small ugali could have been a trigger of many other problems that have been there. Other cases that have been reported, some policeman who stabbed the girlfriend, his lover, 53 times. That was also a reported case in Kenya. 53 times. If you stab somebody even 2 times, this person is likely to die. But 53 times, you know you have to go. So those are serious cases. We've seen a story of somebody who caused some people who caused their own self-harm. So these are commonly reported. Now, in Kenya, the sad news is that Kenya is number 6 globally in terms of prevalence of depression, number 6. So what does that mean? If Kenya is number 6 in the prevalence, then it means I could be affected, a relative could be affected, a friend could be affected. In fact, the statistics indicate that in every 4 people in Kenya, one person has a serious mental health problem, and most likely is depression. So check where you are seated. 4 of you seated together, 1 of you could be experiencing some depression. So that's why it's also important to check on your neighbors all the time. Since 2015, the depression has been on the increase, and statistics of 2019 actually indicate that in Kenya, about 1.9 million are severely depressed, clinical depression. So that calls for attention. Depression is very high in Kenya, around 800,000. Statistics of around 800,000 people die by suicide. In the mental health, we are moving away from committing suicide. We say die by suicide because committing, and we want the government to actually delegalize suicide attempt as legal, because these are people who are sick. So we say die by suicide so that we don't stigmatize them. Some statistics in Kenya indicate that in 2017, a number of people died by suicide, but statistics indicate die by suicide. In other words, more men complete suicide, more women attempt. But deaths by suicide is more common among men than women, but more women are depressed. Why, my brothers and sisters, why? Do men die by suicide? Yes. And their statistics, their figures are higher than us. What are some of the factors in a man's life that may contribute to this? Yes, my sister.
I have to call somebody to share my problem with or seek for advice. But for men, they tend to deal with it as individuals, so they end up not having any other solution except death.
Unajikakamua kimwanaume. That's what she's saying. Unajikakamua kimwanaume, si ndio? You don't go telling people that. Have you ever heard a man saying I'm depressed? Men, you know, when they are going to the river, they are in the market. But I love where women really express their stresses. Like if you go to these churches where people really dance, and you see women dancing, hata kwa harusi, women really dance more than men, si ndio? Hiyo ni kutoa tu stress.
And then they also cry a lot. You know, they're blessed with crying, which, of course, men were denied that opportunity to cry because it would be more shameful to serve someone.
Ona sasa. So that it's shameful for a man to cry in public. So you can hide somewhere and cry. But women would just cry. They cry when they are happy. They cry when they are sad. Yeah. So still it's about men failing to bring out things that affect them. Any other? Yeah, I think we all have a point. But the other point that has been recognized among men is that men, when it comes to suicide attempt, which sometimes end in death, men are very lethal. When a man decides to go, he wants to go. So he will use lethal means like shooting self, burning self, you know, those kind of methods that they are not likely to survive suicide. Car crash, on. But when a woman attempts suicide, yes, they are serious, but in most cases, they are like, I want to see how they will react. So, if it's a rat, you don't take the whole dose. Because now you want to see how your husband will react. You know, that kind of, let me not say attention seeking, but like, how will, you know, women can actually start suicide and then remember that na watoto wangu, na husband nitaachia nani? You want to go and you are still remembering that there's a man you are likely to leave behind. So women don't use very lethal means, and that's how they survive. So rescuing them is easy. So that is an important point to come across, to consider. Then there are areas that have been found to be very prone to suicide. Like I know one of the areas that has been brought out in Kenya is central Kenya. But for me, I normally say that suicide is common even in this region. But because of the stigma and the taboo and the reporting, if a Luo dies of suicide, they will get a very good reason for the explanation of that death. But in central Kenya, they bring it out. So it could also be a matter of reporting. That means that even our own people could be dying by suicide these sites, but the reporting is very low. But the other aspect of suicide that I want parents to take care of is that today, for a long time, there was that belief that children cannot commit suicide. But increasingly, we are seeing a number of children dying by suicide. And cases have been reported as young as class 3, class 2. I guess you've seen these cases. So then it means when our children begin to run low moods, then we need to talk to them more and find out what is it that is bothering you, because before you know it, death may take place. Especially high school, it's common. And we are seeing it in the lower primary schools, just like we are seeing drugs. Now, kids in class 2 can actually try out drugs. Initially, it was around class 5, 6, 7, but it has come down to class 2. So we need to be on the lookout on mental health for our children. The other aspect that is important for us in the church is that please don't see people in church and assume they are happy or they are doing well or they are stable. A lot of deaths by suicide have been reported among high-class people, socioeconomic status high. Before, of course, they are normally not like financial problems and so on. But today we realize that even people who seem not to have financial problems still commit suicide. I guess you have seen deaths by suicide reported among professors. So that needs attention. Why would a professor commit suicide? And people would say that this professor has money, if they have. Sometimes the title is a burden. That's what my colleagues say. We meet and we say, this title is a burden. But if they have money, they are successful. You read their publications, a lot of achievements, only to realize that a professor has ended his life. So it means then that suicide does not have boundaries. Suicide sometimes doesn't have boundaries. So long as there's a trigger and many other issues, it comes out. Another thing that I want us to take note of is family disruptions. Is actually a major cause of suicide. A lot of family disruptions, and the devil is attacking families. That is where the devil has put his seat of throne. That the families get disrupted, and the disruptions come in the form of finances, infidelity, and at that point, the devil does not know whether you are a deacon in church. And the devil doesn't know you are an elder in church. And then you hear stories of this elder is messing up with the youth. The pastor is messing up with the ambassadors. Those are the stories that we are hearing today. And all these are resulting in family disruptions, and therefore a lot of violence and a lot of suicide. And most people would tell you that, most people would leave a note that because I had a suicide, I had family problems. Focus of attention should be university students. In our days when we were in the university, we were presumed to be independent and mature, not with the students of today. If you are a parent with a university student, please follow them up, including their report forms, like the way you follow up those ones in primary and secondary. Don't assume that your child, your daughter or your son that has gone to the university is okay. I see how parents cry every year during graduation. Mtoto aliingia shule akasoma one semester and that marked the end of the story. But you are paying for hostel for 4 years. You are paying for everything. You paid for projects. In their last year, they tell you I'm in campus writing the project. If you go to the system, you'll find that they did 7 units, failed 4, 3. But you are waiting for graduation. That is very depressing. So then you've seen stories of such young people during graduation. If the graduation is in Maseno University and he knows the parents will be there, so he will book a room in Kisumu, and the next thing that will be found in that room is a body. How do I face the society that was expecting me to graduate? So those are the challenges. So I think university students are also a center of focus, and a lot of statistics on suicide deaths, and therefore we just need to follow them. So how do you know that this person is depressed? Just check the following: depressive mood most of the day. Normally, people who run depression, they really get into depressive mood. And if there were family members that were close, you see a sudden change. Just from happy to sadness. So they are normally very sad. Nothing interests them. They can't even enjoy family meals, sitting with people on the table. Loss of interest in activities. As our children grow up, or even our partners, we know what they are interested in. But suddenly, people who are depressed lose interest. Even when people are going for birthday parties, you ask them, are you going for that birthday party? I don't feel like going. Can we go to church? I don't feel like going. Can we go visit some relatives or friends? They lose interest in activities. So that is something worth watching. Significant weight loss when not dieting. So they also don't eat well, they lose appetite, and therefore they begin to experience weight loss. So if your child or a close family member is losing weight, please, it could be a call for attention. The other one is insomnia. Insomnia is just lack of sleep. They don't sleep well. So they can toss in bed, and the bedmates, those who share beds, if they are bedmates here or even online, please check the level of tossing in bed. Or you go to bed and somebody is on the ceiling, just looking up on the ceiling for a whole night. That calls for your attention. So what I'm saying is that actually it's normally easy to detect that a family member, close family member, is depressed. So, or hypersomnia, just sleeping throughout. So if you are a parent, you've gone to work, you left your child sleeping. Now ulitoka kwa nyumba around 9. Then you come back, the child is still sleeping. That calls for your attention. So don't assume that huyu alifanya exams na is tired with whatever happened. A change in appetite is common among people who are depressed. Change in sleeping patterns. There's something we call psychomotor agitation. That is, they are sluggish. They don't move very fast. Even when you give them work to do in the house, if they're your children, they will not do it very fast. So, sort of retardation in using the body generally. Fatigue. Depressed people are very tired. So tired that they would not want to get out of bed and do something. Even self-care, like bathing. If people start skipping bathing, a simple thing like bathing, brushing their teeth, it's a call for attention. I've actually handled a girl who was so severely depressed that could not even get out of bed even when she had her menses. It was such an effort. Even going for meals was a problem. For 2, somebody is just in bed, cannot get out. So that calls for taking blames. Even the mistakes of others, then you are headed to the wrong direction. Then eventually, when all these things come together, then there's the recurrent thought of death. They start saying, suppose I die, what do you think would happen? Nothing will really happen. Kenya will go on, I better die. And then from recurrent thought of death, then they begin to get what we call intent to carry out suicide. The intention now comes in. So they start thinking, suppose I die. Then the next say, I want to die. I think I should die. So thoughts of suicide and intention. Then the next thing, they get a plan. I think I should die. So how do I carry it out? Rat, shooting, accident, car crash. So we call that suicide plan, ideation and plan. They start planning on how to go. And they want to do it in such a way that that when they go, they are sure that they are gone. And then with the plan now, they even leave a note, a suicide note. Did you see last week a doctor, a postgraduate medical student who committed suicide? Yes, and she used whatever, her medical knowledge, and she left of pressure of work. I believe that pressure was there, but I don't think that was the cause of her death. She must have gone through so much. So the pressure of work was just a trigger. Always people who carry out suicide have had a lot of pressure. But there's always what we call the straw that broke the camel's back. So that is what happened to her. So from plan to attempt, and from attempt to completing. So then when people say that, and normally when they want to carry it out, in those plans, some of them even give you signals. So it's up to you to see. Like they tell you, hey, you people, mnajua mtanimiss sana. I'm soon going somewhere, you will miss me. Don't ignore such conversations. So they tell you, they start giving out their precious gifts. Like most of the young people value phones. But if they tell you, I no longer need this phone, why is it that you don't need this phone? Sometimes it's a communication to tell you that, I want to go and I need you to see that I'm almost going. But those are the telltale signs that we ignore. They give out their precious gifts, and they even from their wardrobe, they can give out all clothes. Then you ask them, why are you giving out clothes? I want to donate these clothes to a charity home, or I want to give to my cousins. Find out, why do you want to give out all your clothes? And then they can even tell you that I don't think I need them, I no longer need them, or very soon I will not need them. Those are telltale signs. And we need to know the red flags. Then eventually, of course, they carry it out. And then what else? We just organize for a funeral service, unfortunately. And then we say, so and so died after a short illness. Sindio? Because it's so stigmatized that you wouldn't even want people to know that you are losing a family, you lost a family member through suicide. But again, the problem with a family member committing suicide is that it leaves those who are left behind very traumatized. So death by suicide is very traumatizing. And the family would never be at peace. So what I'm saying generally, let us be on the watch out. Let us look at the telltale signs. Let us not assume that it's happy Sabbath and we are all happy in church. Sometimes it just takes an extra soul to reach out to another person. I'm one person who is so passionate about counseling, and I'm always looking forward to the day when now in this community there will be counseling centers everywhere, like the church, there's a counseling unit. I go to the community if I have a mental health challenge. There's a counseling center, community counseling services, and so on. Now, why do I say this? Because mental health is one area that is seriously neglected by the government. But good news are in the offing. We have been working hard to create a board for psychologists and counselors. It's in the offing. I think we sent the last list on Tuesday last week. Once the board is there, then the services will be so much available. That means even the counselors will have terms of services. I mean, there are terms of employment. And the moment the government starts employing counselors, I'm telling you, all other organizations will employ counselors. So mental health, important, let us not ignore. We tend to concentrate about medical, but today, even the doctors tell us that this relationship between the physical health and the psychological health, between the physical health and the psychological health. The physical health and the psychological health. The physical health and the psychological mentally well are likely to experience physical symptoms. So something that I want to call upon our pastors, our church organs, that we better give it the attention that it deserves. Thank you. I think I wish to stop there. There's so much about mental health. There's always another day. Tomorrow is another day. So thank you so much, my sisters and brothers. Let's go out and support. And I love this informal counseling. Like, you don't have to be a trained counselor to be able to give professional services. Yes, you need professional services, but even the idea of saying hi to somebody and listening to my inner cry, that is very important. So let's do it. We can do it. It's doable. So if there are any questions or comments, I would be willing to listen as we end this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us that this piece on depression. Really, we have gained a lot. Just a few concerns. One, what you are trying to justify it, but I don't know why are they? Why are you defining suicide or giving it a new name? That death by what?
Death by suicide.
Death by suicide.
Yes.
Sanitizing it and making it appear that it is something okay. You can just go for it. Another thing is, how will you draw a line between depression, mental illness, and demonic possession?
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think I've noted the two.
Thank you. Sometimes back, I don't know whether it was in 2013 or 2014, I came across a newspaper that was talking about the influence of drinks to children, that children who are taking soft drinks tend to have suicidal thoughts, or it has some effect with their mental growth. Is there a study about it? Or because from then, if I relate to whatever is happening, then I can easily say that it has some effect to some extent. Do we have a correlation with soft drinks to children, mental health?
Soft drinks and suicide. Okay. So then the fourth one, I react then so that I don't forget the questions.
I know most institutions try to employ counselors. And I'm happy that you're talking about a board that is coming up. Now, my concern, the current counselors that the institutions employ, do they have code of ethics? Because you realize that most of the times, maybe students go to them with a challenge, but you get to hear this information going around within the circles of the institution, and this discourages most of these victims to come out and state their problems. Will this board be able to address this kind of issues?
Thank you. Let me start with the first two, then I come to this, then I come to Mwalimu's question. So the first one is about why are you trying to redefine committing suicide and changing it and replacing it with the death by suicide? This is where we are moving to. That mental health has been so much stigmatized. The stigma that comes with mental health is so heavy. So heavy that people with mental health would not want to go out and seek for help. And okay, now if let's say for example we are walking along the road and somebody does something, or you meet a person without clothes walking naked, what will you say? A madman, Cindy? A madman, But yet this is a patient who should not be walking along the road. That's how we are failed. And you know, we have those stigma terms. So again, this is what has also happened with depression and suicide. That today, you and me will actually testify that people who, let me use the word commit, people who commit suicide don't just wake up and commit suicide. They would have suffered various setbacks in life, including depression. And the depression today is classified as a disease. Even if you are to look at the World Health Organization classification, the international classification of diseases by the World Health Organization, depression, mental health are part of sicknesses. It's only that the medical ones affect the body, but the mental ones affect the mind. And we also know that the body and the mind are the same. If the mind is not working, if the mind is disturbed, the body will not do well. So these are diseases. But again, we are coming from a background whereby you are depressed, you are attempting suicide, and you are being treated as a criminal. Would you want to survive that suicide? If I'm depressed and I'm thinking of attempting suicide and I know I can get help, I would go for that help. But if I attempt suicide, I would rather go, because if I survive, then I will be treated as a criminal. And criminals are the ones who commit crimes. So the reason why we are moving away from committing suicide is that this is a patient who needs help. And I've seen people manage clinical depression that push people to suicide. So one of the things that the Mental Health Task Force that has been there for the last 2 years, led by Frank Jenga, has been working towards, let us also decriminalize this aspect of suicide attempt. And with that, more people will be ready to seek help than knowing that if people discover that I was attempting suicide, then I'll be jailed. So these are guys who belong to hospital rather than the police cells and the prison. They don't deserve to be in prison. And I'm thinking that we are making a positive move, and watch the space. It's going to happen. So it's just a way of destigmatizing suicide. To make it be treated, it needs treatment more than punishment. That's what we are saying. It's a matter of balancing. It needs treatment. Because now, even if we say that, yes, let's make it illegal, will people stop committing suicide? Even abortion is illegal. Do people carry out abortion? Huh? It's illegal. Sindio, if you are caught aborting in Kenya, you will be arrested. Is that true? But have they stopped? They still do it. So if there is a better way of helping people, let's support it. Mental health problems and demons. Now, look at the description of people who are demoniac. People who are demon possessed. How did they present? They present with symptoms of psychological problems. Yeah? Is that true? I'm in mental health, but I know people who are possessed by demons would present with issues like schizophrenics. These ones, they sometimes suffer what we call hallucinations. They will hear what other people cannot hear. They will see the things that you cannot see. They will even hear somebody commanding them to do something. Actually, sometimes when somebody even commits a crime, you only discover that this person was being instructed by another person to go and cut somebody into pieces. Those are the hallucinations, but they are not real, but they have what we call altered perception. Perception affects our senses. So normally what happens is that their senses are the ones that are affected. I've actually sat with a client who would tell me that, I'm dead and you are talking to me. And he's alive and we are talking. So he tells me that I'm dead and you are talking to me. All my organs have been taken away. And the person is alive. That is what we call altered perception. The same client would tell me that I need to go. There's a snake scrolling on my back. But if you follow this client keenly, I come from this approach of where I integrate my Christian faith. And I always say that before I talk to this client, Jesus, you're on the throne. You are the best psychologist. But I also look at the cultural aspects, which actually I wouldn't want to ignore. Because sometimes even the culture determines what the patient tells you. So then you realize that I don't see, if there's a line, maybe the pastors in the house can help me. If there's a line, then it's very thin. But demons, possession, and mental health, for me, they are just one and the same thing. It's only that Christians give it that demon term. Psychologists would give it hallucinations and so on, but we deal with the same patients. And I've seen where prayers work. Prayers work for mental health. Sometimes people who are very professional, they would not agree with you. But I've had this experience. I've had 2 clients from the same family, 2 students from the same family. So one got sick, presenting with schizophrenic symptoms in year 3, a very bright boy. The brother joined the same place and got the same similar problems in year 1. And I was they would get annoyed, and whenever they were annoyed, they would want to burn the hostel. So then I did my psychological bit. I told the father, because there was also cultic movement. They were involved in devil worship also. So I told the father that I've done my part as a psychologist. I want to, and apparently the father was a reverend. I told him, take these boys for prayers and do anything that will help these boys. But since you are reverend, go for prayers. And they were taken for prayers and the boys got well. Prayers work. Prayers work wonders. Even here, you can pray for somebody who has a mental health problem and will get well. And the psychiatrist will tell you that it was supposed to be managed. The person, we don't understand how they got, but the boys got well and graduated. What is that? Yeah. And they were also on psychiatric medication. I don't care what worked, whether psychiatric medication, whether prayers, whether my counseling, but they recovered. And one of the boys, they used to come from Western. So I remember one of the boys inviting me to be a guest speaker in a parents' day. And that was the best teacher in that school. The best teacher, and was a boarding master. Somebody who had given up had dropped out in year 3. So prayers work. So whether walienda Zanzibar, kwa mganga kutoka Zanzibar, or prayers, or my counseling, they got well. So that's what I would say. I don't know. Pastor, you can help. Mental health and demonic possession.
That mental health mental position can also be brought by demonic. So what I believe on mental health, the way you handle it, I cannot. That is above me. But I do believe that prayer works.
Thank you.
There is an art of spiritualism.
True.
Spiritualism is not another aspect of it that sometimes brings confusion, especially on our faith. But let us not discuss that now. Yes, I believe that the prayer works.
Prayers work. We will come back to that. But prayers work because when the mind is sick, the body is sick, and the soul is sick. It's just like when you have sinned, you feel so guilty. What happens? Your mind becomes affected. So the three components are very important and they're interrelated. I don't think you can take one away from the other. For me, prayers work, mental health management work. So, and it's God who has given us this knowledge to use it, isn't it? Yeah. So let's help people as much as we can. Then this publication of 2013, I don't remember seeing that. And I'm not an authority in that area. I wouldn't say that soft drinks can affect children mentally, but we know health-wise, soft drinks have a lot of sugars. But there's a way that the sugars, check those children. when they've taken a lot of sodas, the way they become excited, and how things can be broken into your house. I mean, many things can get broken in your house. Now you will realize that there's a way that the sugars trigger the chemicals in the brain and the general operations of the body. And therefore, sugars. For me, soft drinks, the major problem with soft drinks are the sugars. And if you can restrain these children from taking those sugars, they are never healthy. And then even the chemicals, the additives, those ones can never be good. Actually, like if you have a child with special needs like autism, even cerebral palsy like my daughter, we don't give her sugars and wheat and so on. And you'll realize that when you don't give her those sugars, she's very stable. So, of course, there is a connection. It's only that I'm not able to explain biologically. But in terms of chemicals in the brain and some of these foodstuffs have a lot of additives. They are always not good for anybody, not children, not us. I didn't see the publication, so I wouldn't lie. Now, professionalism. Yes, the board is coming up, and this board will be defining the counselors have been operating without boundaries. So the board will be defining what should really go on. A well-trained counselor and psychologist has been well-trained in professional code of ethics. One of them is confidentiality. Now, what has been happening is that, like me, I sign contracts with my clients on confidentiality. That confidentiality is important in the relationship between me and you. I will keep that, but not absolute. Like if you tell me you are intending to murder somebody, it has limits. If you tell me that there is a particular child who is being abused and needs to be rescued, I can't keep confidentiality. If life is at stake, like you want to commit suicide or commit a crime, then that limits the confidentiality. But in a situation whereby professionals themselves are not keeping this code of ethics, I think that's a problem with those professionals. And then they are in the wrong profession. They better pack and leave. And that is the problem that we have with the schools and the children. The reason why children are not going for counseling services in schools is because of lack of professional code of ethics. This is a child who has opened up, and these children have a lot of secrets. They have opened up. The next thing you hear is that same thing being discussed in the staff room. I mean, no child will come back to your counseling, and this also applies to university students. If you are doing counseling and then you go around with what you've discussed with them, they will never come. But what I know in professional counseling services, if you observe code of ethics, I'm telling you, they will be looking for you everywhere. Yeah, so that is their fault, but it also depends on the training. If we train our professionals in a shoddy way, they will not do a good job when they go out there. Of course, they'll acquire the jobs, but that is not everything. Even when we get jobs, we should have an impact on others. So it's a matter of what I choose to do with my profession. But with the board coming, if you sign a contract with a client and then you break that confidentiality, the client can take you to court. And just like it happens in developed countries, a client can take you to court. So very soon we will be seeing the counselors and the clients taking each other to court. If you don't pay me with the board, if I offer counseling services and you don't pay me, I take you to court. Just like the doctors have their code of ethics, they are being taken to court. Lawyers are being taken to court, and very soon counselors will be taken to court. That is the good news with the board. Yeah. So let's end it here. Tomorrow is another day. Thank you. God bless you all.
That special need is very wide, yeah? And that's the approach we thought that we can do it this year. so that you don't look at the impairment alone, but there are a lot that falls under special needs. And I think we need